Every National League ballpark hits a home run in attendance on this date. No, not this year. Throwback Thursday time. Cole Sports presents on the Daily. Well, hello, VIP. Welcome back to my channel. Cole Johnson's on the mic on the Daily, presented by Cole Sports is on tap. And if you haven't already, come on and do so right now. Why don't you like this video and comment, because I do want to hear what you have to say. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get every single premiere episode of On the Daily and Another Thing and any other content that comes from Cole Sports. And speaking of content that comes from Cole Sports and other products from our sister places and businesses, you want to wear this shirt that I'm wearing right now, the description box below has the deets. And now, this is Throwback Thursday time. So you already know what we do on Thursday. In honor of Throwback Thursday, we have to talk about something in yesteryear sports-wise. And in this case, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different. The game was simpler. The times, not so much. However, this was a milestone that baseball needed, and I think they would love to have a milestone like this now. And I'm not necessarily talking about 2020. I mean, when people can actually attend ballparks like they used to. After all, I mean, all the time it was the national pastime, and back then it definitely was. And so, in honoring the national pastime, we celebrate a unique achievement in this week's edition of September 24th, 1980. Why is this day particularly special? Well, this was the day the Atlanta Braves passed the 1 million mark in fan attendance in the season. Now, okay, you're saying, well, okay, so a team makes it past 1 million in attendance for the year. That's not a big thing, Cole. I agree. And even today, you'd say, well, many teams would sneeze at that stat now, Cole. I mean, 1 million, that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. After all, you got the Dodgers who year after year, they try to set the standard for having not 1, not 2, but 3 million people pass the turnstiles there. I mean, 1 million is a sneeze, and it's a drop in the bucket for teams like them or the Yankees or the Cubs or the Cardinals or any fan base that just turned the turnstiles because they love their team. I won't argue with you. Yes, I 100% agree with you. All of that is true, VIP. However, this mark was a little special because understand how it was in 1980. Understand this. You're talking about at a time when you actually could have 1 million people go see a game, not just in one stadium, but in the National League ballparks, which was 12 at the time, all 12 that year. Yeah. All 12 National League teams had at least 1 million people pass through the turnstiles to see their games. Now, America in 1980, it was reeling. It was reeling from recession. You had oil crisis that was going on. You had Americans being held hostage in Iran. You had inflation that was taking place then. Oh, yeah, and by the way, there was a presidential election that was going on at the same time between the peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia, who was at the time the president, Jimmy Carter, and his successor, as we found out 2 months later, Ronald Reagan. Now, America was just looking for any hope that they could find, and they were finding many things not to be hopeful for. I mean, I mentioned the Iran hostage situation that took place all of 1980. I mentioned the oil shortage. I mentioned inflation. Along with it, in sports, you had the Americans boycott the games earlier that summer to not go to Moscow because of the Soviets invading Afghanistan the year before. So they were looking for any hope. And one bright bulb was in the Winter Games in 1980 when the U.S. hockey team beat the Soviet Union in the semifinals of hockey to go on to win the gold medal in Lake Placid. But that was in February. It wasn't looking quite as bleak then, but you were starting to see signs of bleakness, and it got more and more bleak as the year went on. So, in the backdrop of money not being as plentiful as normal, having 12 National League teams reach over 1 million people in attendance, that's an astonishing accomplishment on its own feet. It's an astonishing accomplishment. I mean, no matter if the teams were good or bad, to say at least 1 million went to see every single National League team play, that's impressive. And it didn't hurt that it was a competitive year that year. I mean, you had the defending champion Pirates, who around this time they were out of the contention for NL East championship glory, but they won 83 games and they made it a little tougher for the ones who were competing for the NL East crown. The Braves, now they haven't had excitement in their ballpark since Hank Aaron hit 715 in 1974. So, 6 years later, they really didn't have much to cheer about, but they had a team that went over 500, which that was an accomplishment in of itself too. The remnants of the Big Red Machine was still there, but they weren't as powerful and as potent as they were, say, in 1975 and 76 when they won the World Series. But they did win 89 games. And they, in the West Division, pushed the contenders as the Pirates did in the East. Oh, and speaking about both divisions, it came down to the last weekend of each season. I mean, it came to the last week of the season for each division. Each of the top two teams in the divisions remarkably met on the last weekend, which that is in and of itself another feat that you probably won't see all that often. So in the East, you had the Phillies and the Expos squaring off in Montreal. While in the West, you had the Astros traveling to Dodger Stadium. Now, the East first. The Phillies and the Expos came into Montreal tied for the East lead. And the Phillies were all business when they got to Montreal because they took the first game, and the game they did clinch the NL East. They were down by a run in the ninth, but a Jack Smith timely hit helped the Phillies win that game and clinch the NL East. A ninth inning rally by the Phillies in 1980. Something tells me we're going to hear more of that as time goes on. I digress. Meanwhile, in the West, it was the Astros who went to LA with a 3-game lead, and all they needed to do was win one of the final 3 games, and they would clinch the NL West. However, all the Dodgers had to do was win all 3 of those games, and if they sweep the Astros, they would have a 1-game playoff where they would host that game because they would have won the season series between themselves and the Astros. Well, the Dodgers beat the Astros Friday, beat the Astros Saturday, and beat the Astros Sunday, which meant we had game 163. Now, the two best words in all of sports is game 7. Another 2 words that are not so prominent, but actually still sounds good, is game 163. Now, the Astros went into that game. They felt depleted, but they got on their horse. They beat the Dodgers. They won the NL West. And so you had the Phillies in the NL East. You had the Astros in the NL West. They met in the National Championship Series. I will talk about that at another time because it is one of the most classic playoff series in any sport whatsoever. Those 5 games were stuff of legend. Still is. But the achievement of the National League providing the proper escape for hard times with Americans all across the country. That is what I find remarkable about this. You had people from infant to senior citizen. They were able to enjoy the game the way it's presented, the way it's always been presented, under tough times and hardships. Yet they put them aside. They found the escape. And for at least 2 hours, maybe 2.5, maybe 3 hours, they were satisfied with smelling the grass, smelling the dirt, smelling the Cracker Jack, smelling the popcorn, smelling the peanuts, and drinking the beer. Even in the midst of struggle, sports came through and provided a healing agent only very few things can. And if only for 2 hours or 3, at least baseball's National League in this time in 1980, it just showed you the power of what escapism can be in tough times. As the National League, thanks to the Braves, recorded attendance marks of over 1 million attended in each of their ballparks 40 years ago today. Now, if there's another thing that you want me to cover, and when we do these flashbacks and rewind type shows, I want to hear what you have to say. Like this video, comment below. What would you like for me to talk about on video about past events? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get any and all content from On the Daily, from And Another Thing, and any other Cold Sports content. And as for now, thank you for coming to this channel once again. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for your time and your love and your comments. I appreciate all of them. This has been yet another installment of Cold Sports on the Visual and On the Daily.